Hey, how's it going guys? It's your boy. I'm on my phone, so it's going to be a bit shaky. I have terrible camera hands and well, I don't want to go on my computer because it's going to be a very busy day today. Work, stuff like that, the usual. So this might not get up until when I get home, whenever that is. And so today's topic is going to be about diversity, or more specifically, diversity in media. So I was watching an Apperbend video and it was about a person who was basically writing about Far Cry 5. Now, Far Cry 5 has had a bit of controversy about being apolitical. Yeah, all our fears about it being a political mess, about how the MAGA people and the Republicans and right-wingers are so awful and evil. No, it's just about a cult, which is kind of, sort of influenced by Christianity, but barely, just a little. It's just about how a rather cooked up story about a cult managed to take over one county in like Montana. Yeah, they don't explain things very well apparently in the game, and apparently there's some writing issues, like the protagonist is really shit. The villains aren't as good as the last one, and the side characters aren't as interesting as well. But that's besides the point. He was responding to an article which was by Forbes about how its apoliticalness, if that's a word, is absurd. It's apolitical to the point of absurdity. And one of the reasons was because it was such an ethnically diverse game with whites, blacks and Asians on both sides, and women and men fighting with each other on both sides, that essentially the diversity has sanitized the game. They're actually saying in this article that political correctness, that pandering to that crowd, forced diversity, is now sanitizing games that they want to sell a message, the message that they want. So essentially, the thing that they've always wanted, which is more representation, is actually a bad thing when it's not suiting their needs. Because when a game company or a film producer or film company makes a film, if that film doesn't cater to their special needs and their agenda, it's bad, or it's sanitized, or it's absurd, because it doesn't push social justice. So basically, tokenism is bad, but only when that tokenism isn't self-serving. If it's self-serving and it's social justice, say like for example Wolfenstein 2, not Wolfenstein 1 by the way, that was a pretty good game and didn't really have any diversity at all. There was like one black character who barely spoke. But he was an interesting character nonetheless. If it's not like Wolfenstein 2, where it's all in your face and cliched, the typical abusive straight white male who somehow ends up with a Jewish wife that he hates. Yeah, I don't quite know how that works, Machine Gun Games, but hey, whatever, I'm not going to question your artistic brilliance. If it's not done like that, it's sanitization and it's wrong, or it's just absurd at the very least. But that's really what it boils down to. They only want these people in there because it serves their interests, because they want these people to either vote for them, or they want them to support them, or they just feel like if they have these people in these games, they're doing a good service to them, they're doing a civil rights cause when really they're not. What they're really doing is just basically sanitizing games in a different way. They're basically dumbing down people's creativity by forcing them down this narrow path. And once they put them down this narrow path, there's not much room for manoeuvre, because now these game developers really don't want to offend anybody, and if they make the game a certain way, or they put a mechanic in there, or they write dialogue that could be considered offensive, they're not going to risk it because of the online backlash. Now, of course, this lot, the social justice people and the games media and journalists in general, will claim that it's the gamers that have that problem, but really it's them. They're the real toxic ones. I mean, yeah, there are toxic gamers, whatever that is, but they're a minority, whereas it seems to be a huge issue in their camp, and most of that stuff about toxic gamers and harassment is just pure projection. They're the ones that are causing a big problem with the game developers and development and creativity, not the gamers. The gamers just want good games, preferably escapism, because Hollywood no longer serves that purpose. I mean, I guess you can argue that Ready Player One is escapism, but the problem with the escapism is that it's drenched in nostalgia. It's pandering. It's not good escapism. Hollywood basically became art because it was great escapism. It became what it is because it offered the escapism that people needed in the 1920s and 1930s, 40s, 50s, right up until, well, the 90s, I guess you can argue. Of course, there were those arty-farty types who wanted Hollywood to be more political, and when the writer-directors came along in the late 60s and 70s, yeah, to an extent it did, but really it just became more grittier, and they were allowed to tell more stories that were a bit more adult and a bit more explicit. And that doesn't necessarily make them more political, but it just makes them have more room to grow and manoeuvre and to express themselves. If they're perfectly fine with Hollywood being apolitical to some extent in their films, and it's okay with them growing because of that, then why can't games? Well, the reason is simple. Games is the most recent medium to go massive. It dwarfs everything. And they want to control it, because if they control this massive billion-dollar industry that dwarfs literally every media industry you can possibly imagine, they control the hearts and minds of people, or at least they would like to think they can, if they can pump this material down people's throats. But sadly, the only games they can really come up with themselves are walking simulators like Gone Home, where you play as a lesbian. That's basically it. So instead, they have to try and hijack other gaming companies and other games, or at the very least try and force developers through harassment and media attention, negative media attention, into making these kind of games, these political games, because they can't do it themselves. They've been proven to be shit game developers, and that's what they're doing, and that's why articles like that exist, and that's why forced diversity is a thing. And luckily for them, game developers, at least a lot of them in the mainstream, pander to them already, or are scared of them, or just believe in their ideology anyway, so are willing to do it. And that's what we've got to try and change. We've got to change their mind and say, look, you don't have to do this. Do what you want. There's a free world. Well, it's a free country in America at the very least, but even they are suffering. In fact, they're the biggest gaming country in the planet, and their industry is failing while Japan is rising. Why is Japan rising? Because it doesn't give a crap about social justice. Their industry just wants to make good games. Now, yeah, you got companies like Konami, but Konami's going to die in a couple of years. And yeah, it's not perfect. Not all the games are great, and they're still pretty much on the road to recovery. I imagine if Final Fantasy 15 wasn't a big hit, would have been goodbye to Japan's game industry anyway, but that wasn't due to political correctness, just a slump in creativity. But you know what? I wouldn't lose all hope like Lewis Leveau has. Lewis, I love you, but don't lose hope, okay? Hopefully, if the market does what it's supposed to do, all these indie developers will become the mainstream. I mean, Activision, EA, they were all indie developers, or at the very least small companies that rose to become big and overtook Atari and all those other companies. Hopefully the same will happen, but we won't know until many decades into the future. So all we can really do is just to keep trying to help developers and trying to show people that there is another way. It doesn't have to be political, and hell, if you want to make a political game, do so. All the merrier. Just don't push it down our throats, and don't try and make every game like that, because it's just agenda pushing and it doesn't make good games. So anyway, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.